My play had just opened, and we had one proper performance post-opening. And then we had our day off, and then we had one performance. And then the next day, we learned that everything is going to be shutting down, including my show. So my show closed then.
In the immediate aftermath of the shutdown in the middle of March, we started having conversations about what we wanted to do and how we wanted to be making space and sustaining community while we couldn't be in space together. And when it became clear that we were not going to be able to pick up rehearsals and productions as we thought, we really sat down to think about what we wanted this year to be.
The energy doesn't disappear, right? The energy of what everyone is collectively trying to do doesn't disappear, but you also don't know where to direct any of that energy to. So right after it happened, I was still, it was, you tell me 30 days, we're going to prepare for day 31 and what needs to happen next. And thank God there's other really smart people whose jobs it is to say, actually, it'll be 90, so you should be also preparing for 91. And actually, it'll be a year and a half. So what do we do next,
And we came up with this idea of the Artistic Instigator initiative, which was a way to get a little bit of money in the hands of artists. We gave the Artistic Instigators $2,500 a grant to just kind of imagine, and said, come back to us with your idea and we will do what we can to realize the idea.
To me, it made complete sense from an NYTW point of view, right? We've always striven to be artist-focused, artist-centric. And as Jim tells it, it's we turn to the artist for them to, for their thoughts and their feelings on how theater should be created and how theater should be experienced in this time, in this year and a half, whatever it may be. So it made complete sense to me that we put the fate of what our theater could do in this time in their hands.
We went to many of the artists who we had long relationships with and the artists whose work was cut short or postponed by the pandemic. But Celine, given her ingenuity and creativity, was an obvious choice as somebody who I was really curious. We were all really curious. What would she think of in this moment?
And they had told me that they were open to anything new, anything wild, anything that, any kind of medium, any kind of a thing. And then I had floated the idea that maybe I want to do something in video game space. And I think that New Theater Workshop didn't necessarily know what I meant by that. And then in one of the conversations, I was like, they might just say this is a terrible idea.
And she said, I want to do a play on Twitch. And I said, let's check to make sure that's okay. And we checked to make sure that, we could figure that out. And we could. And so she said, I want to do the sequel. And we said, that's wonderful. I'm so excited. How can we help? What can we do to make this happen?
But I hope it's good.
A whisper.
Oh, you're twice as loud as I am. Okay. What can we do about this? I don't know what we can do. Oh, I know what we can do. I feel like I always knew that Sims had a lot of theatrical potential. And I know that because I'm a very, in my nature, very theatrical person. And I was always interested in playing The Sims like a theater person. You can play The Sims in many different ways. Some people spend their whole experience of playing The Sims decorating the house. Some people have a really specific human features that they want to design onto a character. There are so many different ways to play The Sims, which is what's amazing about the game. But I always knew that the way that I like to play is to get them to cause drama. I would often create situations where the Sims would become very obsessed with each other, like they will fall in love, some very dramatic stuff.
She had very specific ideas about the piece and the platform, and why Chekhov was so specific to why Sims would be successful in bringing these characters to life. So right after that initial meeting, we had essentially a production meeting with Celine, because we were so far down on the producing side of things. You know, there were no rights to speak of. We had to do a lot of research about what The Sims was and how Twitch worked.
I thought that because of some of the rules that are in The Sims, it's a lot harder. It's very hard to do murder, death, duels, and things like that. So I sort of knew that a lot of the things that happen in Shakespeare, or a lot of the other classics, may not be quite suited to The Sims, as Chekhov is. Chekhov is very suited for The Sims.
Here we go. So that
And a prep kit up.
So now that we have begun, I'm going to start from sort of scratch for sort of who my characters are going to be. So I'm going to start with Constantine, actually.
Finna growl! Oblish, Bernala Flow!
What a shoots day.
There's something about this guy that I'm really feeling.
I had a sense of like how I was going to try to do a certain thing. So I had a plan. It did feel like it was writing or something, but sort of really quickly. It was like really quick writing.
So for the callers, Celine had wanted either playwrights or theater makers, or people who were gamers or had a specific interest in Chekhov, or better yet, all three.
Are you gonna have a moment when someone woohoos?
Yes. Basically the thing that I was thinking about was that I was going to have Trigor and Nina, they're gonna have to woohoo because I want Trigorin to impregnate Nina. Those happen in the play, right?
Oh my god.
So they're gonna have a baby, right?
Oh my god. Well, have you seen all the things about like the different things you can eat to make it a different type of baby, or to have twins? And... So like if you eat apples during the first trimester, you'll have like a girl, I think.
My god.
And if you have to go like I'll send you a Sims cheat code website that has all the like details and all the like weird like cheats inside of it.
We wanted the chat to be robust. Every time that she had mentioned something specific, like this part of the text, or if you want to read more, like welcome, if you want to read more and don't know anything about the Seagull, maybe read the Wikipedia, so there was, we wanted it to be simultaneous like that. So we had a sort of a run of show document that there were links involved and other things, and that I would post simultaneous to when Celine would be talking about it. But there was by no means a script. I mean, that's very obvious, when you watch the piece.
The capacity to form a community that transcended borders, transcended time zones. I think the beauty of theater in the conventional sense is that you're in space together, and the limitation is that you have to be in space together. And so that we could create a community that came together around this experiment from all over the globe was really exciting, and something that I hope we figure out how to continue when we are back in space together.
And in fact, that's actually really accurate to the play, right? Like Nina's the one who's really coming in hard on Trigorin. It's not the other way around. So maybe that's what we're gonna do.
Because like the thing too is that I know, for me at least, when I play the game, I always try to get people in thruples, and it's made very difficult if they have romance at all in their aspirations or their like who they are.
Yeah.
And so you have to have what's the one that's kind of like I'm a cheater? Like they all have to have that emoji.
The I'm like I want to have as many like uncommitted relationships as possible.
Yes.
Like fear of commitment, that's the one. Yeah.
The Seagull was such a good choice for The Sims in particular, because it is about these interpersonal relationships, and it's not about, there are dramatic things that happen, but the play, I think, as I feel is true of Chekhov's work more broadly, is what is happening between those dramatic events, what's happening as the characters are sitting and waiting. And we did a lot of sitting and waiting, which we could not have anticipated. But the second evening of the event really became about waiting for Masha to have a baby, Masha, who's a relatively minor character in Chekhov's original play, and waiting for Constantine to die.
Last minutes of his life.
And then Celine ultimately said, I know how Constantine's going to die. And I didn't know what that was until we started watching, and she filled the space with these special Seagull mods, and watching him slowly go crazy at his computer while these birds appeared and then disappeared and appeared and disappeared, and all these things that we could not have anticipated.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Wow. Now we're gonna wait for death to come. He's like, what's up with those seagulls?
It was an act of sitting and waiting, and it was not dramatic in a conventional sense. And I think that honored what was new about what Chekhov was doing in the late 19th, early 20th centuries in a way that was really unexpected and beautiful.
So the monologue is Trigorin's monologue, which is performed by amazing Emily Kuroda, who was in Endlings as Komin. Endlings is my play. And also it's from Act 2. Oh, it's from Act 2. Sorry, actually this speech is from Act 2, but I'm going to play it right now. It's performed by Emily Kuroda, who's amazing, and she was also on Gilmore Girls. But more importantly, she was in Endlings as Komin.
I have a feeling for nature. It arouses a passion in me, an irresistible urge to write. But I'm not just a landscape artist. I'm a member of society as well. I love my country and my people. As an author, I feel duty-bound to speak out about them, about their sufferings, their future, about science and the rights of man, and so on and so forth. I try to cover them all. I do my best, but there's always somebody after me, angry. And I race back and forth like a fox at bay. I watch science and society forge ahead while I drop farther and farther behind.
Celine said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had someone read this? Like, can we do it live? How should we, what's the best way to go about it? Who should we get? And it was 5 hours until the start of night 2. And of course, Emily Kuroda was one of our beautiful Endlings, and a wonderful actress. And so we threw some ideas around. We settled on a specific monologue. Emily was at Costco and said, oh my God, I would love to do it. She had watched night 1 and it was so engrossed by it. So she went home, taped it, sent it to us, and it made it into the show that night.
I think this is an opportunity for all of us to sort of realize that theater is actually just like a room in New York somewhere that we're calling theater. And actually the theater is something that is happening because of the people who are putting authorship behind it. So I feel like to sort of try to define and grieve the whatever idea of theater that existed before doesn't make a lot of sense, because theater is both fully alive even at this moment and shut down. And that contradiction is a very real part of what's been happening to us in theater.
One of the things that felt exciting to me in putting together this initiative broadly was that none of us have ever done this before. So there is no, this is what works and this is what doesn't work. And so getting to play with folks in that way has been really inspiring and challenging and rejuvenating and restorative amidst everything else that is going on around us.
As we talk about expanding traditional theatrical forms and who gets to participate in theater, who gets to make it, who gets to see it, that ultimately the form is not determined by the people it's always been determined by. And I think ultimately that starts with ideas, that starts with the thirst for artistic expression in ways that we never considered before and didn't seem possible before. Now we know that a lot of things are possible and that we shouldn't forget these lessons when everyone goes back to work, because not everyone's going to go back to work, unfortunately. So it comes from ideas first and then ultimately resources to make it happen.